because of the absence of this election, fair playing ground, in the absence of a new constitution, in the absence of restructuring our constitution, institutions. What happened even in the last elections is that if you analyze the composition of the Grand Coalition government, you will find that those in power are either those who have been there since 1963 and therefore the beneficiaries of the corruption and land grabbing and representing class interests, or their children, and in some cases their grandchildren. A majority of Kenyans continue to wallow in poverty without any hope of a better Kenya, better opportunities. And therefore, although this accord is good because of laying down the roadmap, the reality is that anyone expecting the Grand Coalition government to implement Agenda 4 is being naive, and this is where the international community comes in.
And also Agenda 1 and Agenda 2.
Yes.
It's only Agenda 3 really that's been implemented, because 1 was about civil liberties and 2 was about the IDPs.
Yes.
Humanitarian assistance.
Precisely.
Power sharing.
So, let me talk about the human rights violations which have been going on, in fact, from 1964. Political opponents are driven underground, they are bankrupted, they are persecuted through abuse of the criminal justice system and that sort of thing. And examples litter our history from 1964, including political assassinations. Now, even during the current regime, and Moi had his share, including the assassination of Robert Luko, the many people who died in Nyayo torture chambers, the people who died in the clashes of 1992 and 1997. But in terms of numbers, those pale into insignificance when you look at what has happened under the Kibaki regime. Because although Kibaki, up to now, and we hope it doesn't happen, but it could happen, has not executed a high-profile political figure. Jomo did, Moi did. And I know for a fact, when they are talking about so-and-so is, who does he think he is? People like Etobo, people like myself and others. It is not that they are very far from effecting a political assassination. It's just that at the moment he's been concentrating on lower-ranking people. And one feels very, very sad indeed, because there are quite many who have been extrajudicially executed. And without getting into too many details, I was one of the public figures to start talking against this issue of political extrajudicial executions. And therefore what happened is that these young people, the Mungiki, felt very happy that at least there was one public figure from Central Province who was talking for the voiceless, because they consider themselves voiceless. And they felt very happy about it, so they started sending overtures to me. And I am probably one of the few public figures in Central Province who has not taken the Mungiki oath. Because it's not that they have not attempted, they attempted in 1996. And I said to them, look, what I have done for this country and for the community, what oath can make me do more? And I was doing that. That to me is the biggest, most powerful oath. And we came to that understanding and haven't attempted again. But I spoke strongly against extrajudicial execution, and I've consistently stood firm on that issue. So briefly, to understand this issue of extrajudicial execution, because it's particularly acute against the young Kikuyus. These are young people who started off by planting, hiring or leasing land in Laikipia and Nakuru, growing tomatoes, growing cabbages, and coming to sell in Wakulima market. And now one is talking about 87, 88, around there, towards 89. It coincided with very colorful figure called Gonya Wagakonya, with his tent of living God.
The living God, yes.
Now, here is, young people just require leadership. And when they were given leadership that you can actually lease land and make a living, they were flocking in, given the unemployment in this country. And therefore, they almost overran Gonya's tent of the living God. In fact, the name Mungiki was coined by Gonya Wagakonya. When he saw that these young people, the influence of the young people might snatch leadership of tent of the living God from him. And it's him who told them, no, leadership of this sort of organization is not for Mungiki. Mungiki being the Kikuyu word for multitude. And they felt, instead of imposing ourselves on this religion, see to one's head, which is how it started. Now they became a cult, they continued Nini. But things happened very quickly, because of course now that is the time we are also pushing for multipartyism. And Section 2A is repealed. Of course, many of them are in matatu industries as conductors, as drivers, and that sort of thing. Now, what Moi had done, if you remember, during the days of Baba na Mama, is that he had told the Kanu youth wingers, instead of me, Moi, giving you money all the time from my pocket, why don't you take over buses, muwe mukilipisha 100 bob for a bus, 50 shillings. The headquarters was in Nakuru. And now when 2A was repealed, these young people who were the drivers and the conductors in the buses, wait a minute, why should we continue paying you money, you as a Kanu? We are opposition. Wakatoa viboko, wakanyorosha Kanu youth wingers. If Moi actually, the one powerful message that things have changed was his powerlessness, that he couldn't save the Kanu youth, and they were chased away from Nakuru bus station. But Moi, being a political animal, akaangalia, now this is now 1994. Instead of fighting with these young people, and I have been rejected in Central Province to Amman, wacha niwalete karibu. So he sent a prominent Kikuyu politician from Kiambu, nilete viongozi wa hawa vijana. So this politician went to the leadership of Mungiki. This is the president wants to see you. He's still the president, and we know he's got money. Kuja niwapeleke. So they told him, before we can discuss such deep things with you, lazima uwe one of us. In Kikuyu tutuke amweri omwe. So this politician became one of the first public figures to take the Mungiki youth. And then he took these people to Moi. And Moi told them, I want us to work together. Wacha hiyo bus station ya Nakuru, mchukue zote. In the country, nationally, the transport industry was taken over by these young people with the express authority of the then President of the Republic of Kenya. He actually produced 400,000 shillings and gave it to this senior politician. He said, kuna polisi wengine ambao ni vichwa ngumu. And because I can't tell them not to arrest him, if you are arrested, you pay the bill and you pay the fines. Right. And this money, if it is finished, come for more. So that's how they took over, this sort of thing. Now, I don't want to go into the other details because they are very, very sensitive and that sort of thing of the other people who have been involved and taken the oath.
Senior,
completely. Oh yeah, including 90% of the MPs from Mount Kenya region in 1997. But the point I wanted to make here is that towards the referendum, these youths supported the Orange in the referendum. They voted against the draft constitution. When the Honorable Mechuki was appointed, took over from Murungaru, who had been trying to discuss with these youth to see how they can be straightened out. Mechuki took over. He took the phone and telephoned Maina Jenga. They said, we've lost the referendum because of you. You voted for Orange. And there are going to be consequences. If you go back through the media, you will find that the extrajudicial execution started at the end of 2005 when Mechuki took over and picked up in earnest in 06 and is continuing up to today. And the documented cases in terms of those who have been killed and those who have not been found, forced disappearances. You're talking about people in excess of, young people, young Kikuyus, in excess of 7,000 killed or lost. And you know, many of them, people don't even get to hear about them. And now the problem is that a lot of accurate documentation is being undertaken by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights under Commander when Maina was there. He was threatened and he had to leave the country. So today there isn't, the other good NGO was Oscar Foundation. They were executed. Jogona Gitao Jogona had been very instrumental in assisting even Professor Alston, who was recently executed. Actually, all the key people who were coordinating this in terms of collection of data have all been executed. So it's a very, it's a major issue, really, because, I mean, even when they were threatening me the other day, the message I got was very interesting. Leave central politics alone. Why is that interesting? It is interesting because when they were holding Maina Jenga for 15 days in Communicado, he was being held at airport police station, and he would be picked up from there every day at 5 a.m., taken to Mazingira in the conference room where the state security agencies would be there. Not 15 people, few CID, but majority intelligence people. And throughout those 15 days, not one question was put to him about the murders in Madeira. The questioning was all political. Fulani, do you, people in Central Province, so and so, do you regard him as a home guard or as Mau Mau? Why don't you support so and so? Who will you be supporting in 2012? So there is this sort of rebellion in Central Province that is an obstacle, from the youth, that is an obstacle to whatever plans that are there for the succession in 2012. And the issue is that these political, social, historical issues have got to be resolved. I mean, what one is looking for is a management of this country in a manner in which the benefits of the economic development can reach a majority of the people, and where everybody can be given an opportunity to improve on their own economic prospects. For example, look at the absurdity that we've got the capacity today to pump oil from Mombasa uphill all the way to Kampala. Why can't we use the same capacity to pump water from Lake Victoria, take it to Timboroa and allow it to flow by gravity or irrigate it. And then subsidize electricity, because you can grow everything. I mean, you can open up all the areas, Ukambani, Northeastern Province, through that sort of thing. In my view, that's what we should be giving priority to. And you've, as the mass group, you've done very well in analyzing these debt registers. If we had used that money that has been borrowed and stolen to harvest rainwater, even without pumping water from Lake Victoria, would have turned this country into. And then the young people, the multiplier effect, the growth is actually much faster in the hot areas. So, how come we have not thought about prioritizing these sort of economic, social issues to give an opportunity to everybody? So, you have a situation where those few families in Central Province want to continue dictating the direction in which the community and the country will move. It's like there is a God-given right that first those are the families that must dictate where the country is going to go. So anyway, to go back to this issue of extrajudicial executions, it's like there is that fear, and either they must be subdued and others must be silent through intimidation or execution and that sort of thing, which of course is a waste of time, because you cannot kill the entire population. You cannot kill the entire population.
But you will never resolve extrajudicial killings if the police still have you for longer than 24 hours.
The police and the judiciary.
Yeah.
Actually, Jane had made a very good point that you can have all the elaborate provisions in the Constitution unless you've got a judiciary that can enforce those rights in the Bill of Rights.
And you can only have an independent judiciary if it's not appointed by the executive. Because then if you have the executive appointing everybody in the Judicial Service Commission, then honestly, this is how you have a constitution. You have it. I mean, it's not that we need to restate our rights. We have them, but we can't enforce them since the 70s.
So it's violated with impunity.
With impunity.
Actually, now that you mentioned the Bill of Rights and how they amended it, 78, when Jomo died, I called Enos Wako, who was a lawyer. I called the late Masime, I ended up a judge of the Court of Appeal. I called Gibson Kamau Kurie. I called a few lawyers to my office. And I said, this is an opportunity for Kenyans to have the opportunity to elect their president. Because, since 1963, the Kenyan people have never had the opportunity to elect their presidents. So although KANU was one party, although Kenya was a one-party state, we wanted to force elections. We wanted the Kenyan people to say, you must have a process that is open for us to elect the president. We don't want you to orchestrate just one candidate, Aingie, to become the president. So, very naively, we drafted a very good statement, which we all signed, which we wanted to release to the media. And we sent it to the nation, we sent it to the Standard. It never appeared in the media, and I was very intrigued as to why it had not appeared in the media. And therefore I'm driving up to Karen, outside the Kenya Science Teachers College, where the road is very wide.
Right.
And I saw Udi Gishaga's car in front of me. How I knew it, because it was the only BMW in the country.
That's right.
To go there. So I flashed him, he stopped. I can understand the nation not publishing this, because I think George Gedi was the editor. What about the Standard? He was the chairman of the Standard. So I haven't seen him. So I went back to the car, I had a few copies, and I gave him a copy of the statement.
Right.
Could be being followed by the special branch. And now, ask Kasanga Muro this, because he will tell you. He was in Parliament, and he meets Giorgio in the corridor there, and Giorgio is shouting abuses at him. Why? Because he's a lawyer. Anyway, and he didn't know why he was being called names until my name was mentioned. That's when he clicked. And he's being told, we are going to detain this fellow. very seditious document. He almost brought this country down. Giorgio exaggerates. I mean, Udi had stopped his car, mine had stopped. So I walked and gave him a copy. They are driving along high roads, high speed in opposite direction and exchanging very seditious documents. Mafia style, I threw his document, it landed inside there.
You're flattering.
Udi is car. It wasn't true. Anyway, to Giorgio's credit, he wouldn't do anything without consulting Karugu. I mean, the detention laws, the way they were awarded that way, Preservation of Public Security Act,
Right.
was that a president died with his powers.
That's right.
And to vest the new president with the powers to exercise powers under the Preservation of Public Security Act, Parliament had to pass a resolution. So Giorgio calls Karugu and he tells him, we are going to detain this person. Now me, 78. So Karugu tells him, but the law is that Parliament must have this resolution first. You mean we can't detain him? No. So I escaped. Karugu told me that. So if you go through the Hansard, my first motion when I got to Parliament in 92 was a revocation of that resolution that vested Moi with the powers of detention. Now that you are a multi-party,
right.
It was resoundingly defeated.
So when was the sedition laws repealed? Because
97.
In 97.
So the current constitution is what I wanted just to emphasize. That to me, when you're asking the current Grad coalition government to implement Agenda 4, they don't have the capacity. They don't want us to have a new constitution. They will not implement the land policy. And the other structural weaknesses in this draft, particularly as regards devolution. Because when you look at the chapter on devolution, first, before you can start talking about devolution, you need to debate and develop a consensus on the criteria for the creation of constituencies in terms of population, in terms of geographical size. What we had proposed in the third parliament was the 3 categories of constituencies, which I think is still a good approach, and then combine it with mixed member proportional representation. You need to debate that and lay down the criteria as far as the constitutions are concerned in terms of minimum number in an urban constituency, maximum. Minimum in rural densely populated, maximum. Arid, semi-arid, you do the same. And you repeat that with the districts. We must agree on a criteria for the creation of districts.
That's right.
In terms of population,
That's right.
in terms of geographical
That's right.
size.
Yes.
Because now these are the districts that have been renamed counties. They are the ones that you'll be electing people to the Senate.
That's right.
The Senate has got fairly substantial powers. So unless there is a rationalization, people are going to continue feeling a sense of injustice. That has not been done in the current draft. So that approach to me looks quite wrong, because in fact, if you can address the issue of representation of the people, chapter first, then you'll be able to more easily agree on devolution and agree on the system of government. Because if you are fair on the issue of representation,
That's right.
then we can live either with a parliamentary system or a presidential system.
That's right.
But this hybrid is, to me, unworkable. To begin with, you are electing a president on the basis of the policies that they articulate during the elections. You must give them the opportunity to implement those policies. And the president cannot implement those policies relying on a prime minister who does not share in those policies. So the chapter on devolution of the people is very weak and superficial. The chapter on devolution is very weak and superficial, and the chapter on the executive has got many weaknesses. I mean, when you talk about Tanzania, the fundamentals are very different from Kenya. Why?
Single party.
Not just single party. Nyerere, for all his other shortcomings, was able to move Tanzanians into a nation.
Right.
Through two things. Promotion of Kiswahili. Because Tanzanians think themselves of Tanzanian first.
That's right.
Not as tribes. And CCM, which has got, by and large, internal democracy. So they are not polarized like we are. The real power in Tanzania is actually in CCM. And it is CCM that determines who is going to be president, who is going to be prime minister. So although prime minister derives powers from the constitution, it's a very powerful prime ministership.
Right.
But they are, for the foreseeable future, they will always come from the same party. And any difference is the party comes in. So those fundamentals are different from what we have in Kenya with a polarized ethnic society.
And I think Kenya has another big weakness, that we don't actually have political parties.
Exactly.
At all.
So exactly. Even Kanu is dead now.
Yeah.